welcome back. It's of course Sport Federation TV. We carry on talking about the sports in the Western Cape, and joining me on the line now is Reinet Barnard from Physically Disabled Sport, and she can tell us a little bit more about the sport called boccia, and of course some other sport codes within the PD codes. Reinet, it's great to have you on the line with us. How are things on your side?
Hello, JP. Thank you for having me. Going well this side, thanks.
First time for us to have you on the show. Let's start the first question. How did you get involved with physically disabled sport?
I've been working at schools for children with physical disabilities since '99, and I've been introduced to boccia when it started in South Africa in 2004 through school sport. And from there it started and just escalated.
Right, so I think the topic for us tonight is boccia. Now, I think a lot of people probably need a decent explanation of what boccia is. When I googled boccia, we find all this information about bowls, and it originates in France. But the boccia that you're talking about, give us a little bit more information about what is boccia.
Boccia is similar to bowls, but it's an indoor sport and it's adapted for people with severe physical disabilities. So that's our athletes with cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, the really severely affected, physically disabled athletes. And it's those that's wheelchair bound, so they play in their wheelchairs. Yeah. And it's for athletes with weak hand function and even with no hand function. So it's on the principle of a jack ball, it's a white ball, and then 6 red balls, 6 blue balls. You can play individuals against each other, or you can play in teams, that's 3 in each team, or you can play in pairs, that's 2 in each pair. And boccia is a game of wit and skill. You have to outwit and outplay the opponent.
Right. Do you have an assistant with you, or a team manager or something when you're playing the sport?
Yes. When you play in teams or pairs, you're allowed to have either your coach or your manager on court. The manager or coach can't be on court, just off the court, but on the play area. And then between the ends, you can have a quick team meeting. The coach or the team manager can come on and help with picking up the balls, setting up the balls. And then our BC1 athletes, those are the athletes that still play with their hands or their feet. And they have an assistant that can just hand them the balls. And then a very specialized part of boccia is our BC3 athletes. Those are the athletes with very limited or no hand function. They play with a ramp, and they have a ramp assistant. The assistant is actually just a tool to enable them to play the game, to place the ball. And the assistant move the ramp as the athlete instructs them to. So it's still the athlete's game. It's absolutely up to the athlete, because the assistant's not allowed to look onto court. They sit with their back towards the court and the play area, and the assistant has no idea what's going on court.
Really, that's fascinating. When we talk about the ramp, and you talk about moving the ramp, I'm assuming they're moving it left, they're moving it right, and trying to reach a target.
Yes. With playing with the ramps, it's quite an intricate process to teach the athlete how to use it. It is about left and right, yes, aiming at the jack ball, and then also about up and down. And then they have lengthening pieces. So the longer you have the ramp, the longer a roll the ball has, and the faster it can roll. And then also very interesting with the BC3 athletes and with all the other players, you get different consistencies of balls. You get a soft ball, you get a medium hard, you get a hard ball, and the different balls do different things on court. So you really have to strategize to see where the opponent's ball or where the jack ball is and what you want to do to get to your target.
Right, and of course to become a boccia certifier, if I've got the terminology right there, that's quite an advanced certificate.
Yes, the boccia classifier, and yes, they do. They first get classifiers. They first start provincially, and they classify, and then they get a national accreditation, and then when they've done a few years national accreditation, they get selected to do the international accreditation to be a boccia classifier.
That's fantastic. Reinet, I've got to ask you the question, because the other thing that we found out that is that boccia is an internationally competitive sport. How are we doing from a competition point of view? I mean, we've got to know how our Western Cape athletes are doing.
Yes, it's an international sport. It's a Paralympic sport.
Yes.
So it's very competitive. Internationally, it's extremely competitive sport. From the competitions that I've refereed international, I always tell people it's the biggest empowerment of disability internationally than you will ever see. There's nothing that stops those athletes. They are just brilliant. They are dedicated. They work hard. They do everything they can. So it's a scientific sport. There's lots of training. We have an international qualified coach, also a boccia coach in South Africa. And then we have 2 international qualified referees in South Africa.
We know, of course, with COVID, many of the international competitions have now been postponed, and we wait to see what is going to happen on a global level if we're going to compete again, or at least when we're going to compete again. When would you expect the next big competition for boccia?
Yes, there's been lots of talk about that. The competitions were cancelled up until December, and there would have been one December, but that's also been postponed for this year. We are maybe at this time looking at international competitions from March next year. We have a few athletes that has competed internationally. The last 2 athletes were 2 of the Western Cape athletes that competed in 2018 in the CP International competition. It's Ilanza Jordan for the BC3 athletes. Wonderful exposure, brilliant opportunity. And then last year in October, it was one of our BC4 athletes, Dominic van Schlecht, that competed in Brazil with one of our Eastern Cape athletes.
Absolutely fantastic. It's so thrilling to hear that we're doing so well from an athlete perspective, and that we're competitive, and that there are these great opportunities and coaches looking after our physically disabled athletes. Reinet, just for members of the public that are watching right now and maybe want to join or get involved with physically disabled sport or compete in boccia or some of the other codes, how would they get involved? How would they make contact with you? I know we've got it scrolling on the Facebook on the website here at the bottom of the screen is the Facebook page. Is that one of the best ways to get in touch?
Yes, you can go to the Western Province SAPD Facebook page or the Western Cape SAPD Facebook page, and you can also contact your provincial or your local sport for physically disabled in the district that you are, and then they will come in contact with us at boccia, and we are very keen to develop boccia. We've been doing lots of development this year in the Western Cape and last year, even luckily just before lockdown, and we are trying our best to get everyone that wants to be and that can be involved.
That's fantastic, Reinet. Thank you for taking the time to catch up with us. We look forward to following the progress of our Western Cape athletes, and make sure that we give them lots of exposure, and hopefully they'll go and win some gold medals overseas, or any medal, or just participate.
Thank you. Yes, we are looking into hosting an international event next year. So yes, let's be positive, and we are looking at any ways to make it possible.
There we go, folks. Reinet Barnard, Western Cape Physically Disabled Sport, and do yourself a favor, go and look on the Facebook page. They've got some incredible stories of the athletes that are doing so well in PD in the Western Cape, and of course boccia being one of those codes that is really, well, it certainly looks like it's growing, and on this show we'll give it attention to help it grow even more. Folks, we'll take an ad break. When we come back from the break, we'll carry on talking about sport in the Western Cape. Don't go away.